Okay, so I just thought I'd give you a quick update on how I'm doing with making this rear quarter panel. As you can see, it's cut. Not exactly perfect, but yeah, it's okay. I can tidy that up when I grind that. Putting the fold in, actually, there's a little fold there. It's quite tricky to do it. Just a vise, a small vise, and then use just a pair of pliers, really, pipe grips, just to bend that round so you get that little shape in there, which is similar to the one on there. So to be honest, I'm quite pleased with it. It's turned out okay. I've got to trim this, so I've got a line there, I've got to trim, and then I've got a fold there. But this is £100 or something like that, this panel. And I managed to make this one probably, you know, just for the cost of some time and the actual sheet metal. So yeah, pleased with that. That's gone really well. Only, as I say, the only tricky thing was just doing these folds. But been busy with work, so haven't had too much time to be outside. But I'll just come across and show you what we're doing with the car. I took one of the other small panels off, which was at the back here of the inner fender. It was absolutely rotten, and I actually managed to find a little mouse nest in the back there. Yeah, so Tush, yeah, I've got my little mouse friend as well. He's gone now, and I've managed to cut out and put this piece of metal in there, which I'm going to tack and weld in. But before I do, I can get to the rear of it from the inside the car, and I'm just going to tap this back a little bit so that it lines up a bit better. I've put some of the red oxide and some primer on the parts that I've cut out. You can see it there. Yeah, it's not perfect, but it was almost like trying to weld tissue paper, and there's one of my favourite things there, the hole that I've got to do. So I'm going to do that, but the most important thing now is I'm going to tidy this area up. I just put some oxide on it, just red oxide, just to stop it rusting. There was a big chunk missing out the top here, which I've put in. There's a cage nut that goes on the back there, so I'm going to weld that in from the back and cut this top piece out. So that will be okay. I'm going to crack on later on this afternoon and fill these holes up because they're driving me mad. And I do actually have now these drip channels. So, but they look quite interesting to fit, but I want to get the quarter panel in before I start moving this, because I think if I start losing my reference points, I might have a problem when I try and put the boot back together again. But all in all, quite pleased. As I say, I do want to get on and do this. I just trim around the edge there a little bit, and there's a little bit there as well that I've got to do. But yeah, I'll come back to you as soon as I've got this tacked in, and we're going to have a look to see how it's moving on. So I'll come back to you hopefully later on today. Okay, it's getting later in the afternoon now, and it's really starting to get cold, so I'm freezing. So it's probably time to call it a day. But I'll tack that panel in where I've stitched that in there. I'll tidy that up tomorrow and make that look a bit better. It's quite hard because the metal is it is like trying to weld tissue paper in places. The metal's okay, but I'm actually quite pleased with how that's gone. It looks okay from the inside as well. If you can see that under there, at the top there, that's the hole. I'm going to tidy that up as well. And here we've got the rear quarter panel. Okay, which I think I'd say I'm fiddling with. It is going to be a fiddle to fit, but yeah, I think it'll be okay once I've got it in. And then I just want to see how it goes, really. Then once it's in its proper location, I can say, well, yeah, that does fit in there. I can then remove this drain channel, cut that, and then do the whole thing in one hit. It's Sunday and it's freezing cold, but it's a sunny day. And you're not allowed to make any noise on Sunday. Shh. So I can't do any grinding, any hammering or anything like that. But what I thought I would do is to have a go at fitting this rear panel, just to see what it looks like and how it's going to be. So I popped the panel in. It was, to be honest, a wiggly job. Had to wiggle it in. There's still some filler here, which is obviously stopping this going back. So I'm going to take that out. and sorted out there a little bit, but you can see how it's going to be. I've had to put a clamp on to pull the panel back so that it sits. So if you look under there, hang on, if I move the light round, I don't know if you can see there, but it actually sits really nicely on the patch that I fabricated for the inner wing. So I'm really pleased about that. It's a really nice fit. The only place where we don't have a nice fit is on the top part of this stiffener panel here. I'm going to have to do some fettling there and panel beat this down and stretch it down, but that will be okay. I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue. It's actually sitting really nicely as well against the rear apron, so I'm happy with that. You can see in there. Obviously this rear apron here, a lot of it is going to be cut away and a new part put on there. Just this is because this area here is a real mess, so I'm going to be doing that. Yeah, so I'm really pleased. It sits quite nicely along here. It's slightly higher, it's slightly prouder than the original panel, but that's okay because I can cut that back, so I'm not too worried about that. And this is the drain channel. If you can see that one, yeah, that's really nice as well. That was £15. So I know it's just basically a piece of metal folded in another tray put in there. It's slightly longer, but I will need to cut that down. So I'll get on and do that, but I wanted to make sure that this panel went in there first, and it does. So with a little bit of pushing backwards and forwards and a tiny little bit of fettling, I'm really happy. Okay, so I'm going to tidy this area up here. I'm going to finish off my welding that I was doing down there and put the cage nut in under here and start looking at this top area. I'm quite happy where it sits here. I'll try and put some light on there for you so you can see a bit better. It has to be kind of parallel. There's the light coming on, so you can see where it's going there. It's not too bad. So once that rear quarter panel is slightly hammered out and spot welded back into position, and the boot floor put in there and lined up, I think it's going to sit okay. Yeah, so that's good. Okay, so I'll come back to you in a bit and I'll give you an update as to where we are and what we're doing, but it's gradually going back together, and as I said, do one side at a time, and I think that would be the best thing to do. But yeah, it's moving on, so I'm quite pleased. Okay, with Christmas just around the corner, I wanted to make sure that I had as many parts in as possible so that I can get cracking and get as much work done over the Christmas period that I can, really. I know it sounds sad, but got to have some sort of enjoyment, haven't you? So yeah, so this is the rear floor panel. As you can see, it's got the tunnel here, and it sits, if I push it up, okay, so it sits into position like that. But mine doesn't have any of this. Mine's all sort of rotten and gone, and the floor panel's gone there as well, and part of this area here has gone. The top part was also missing, so although I had to wait for this, and I forget, to be honest, how much this was, it was a really good buy and I'm really pleased with it. It's actually quite well made. I quite like looking at things as well to see how they've actually made it, and if I could make it myself, but I think this one is a bridge too far. It's not something that I could do, but I just thought I'd show it to you. But it's a major bit of panel work there, so I'll come back to you a little bit later on and we'll have a look at how this sits inside the car. Okay, so here's the rear floor in the car. So it's a nice snug fit. I wanted to see actually how it was going to fit in, and I think it's going to be a good fit. It's slightly snug, which is better than it being sloppy, but yeah, I'm happy with that. So the next thing to do will be to bullion forward, put the boot floor in, which I've also got. But I wanted to see how this panel, because he was quite expensive, I wanted to see how it actually sat in the car, and I'm very happy about that. So boot floor next, line that in and see how that sits in. Well, hopefully you can see that. There's the trunk floor, the boot floor in. Again, just temporary. Obviously got to fix this area here, but as to how it lines up, it's looking pretty good to me, how it's going to be. And a slight difference there, but that's because I've got to bend and sort this quarter panel. But looking from inside the car, yeah, it's good. Two holes here. It's for the fuel tank, the breather and the actual fuel line. Now this is this tray where it sits in. I'm going to make sure actually that when I do this, I'll put lots of under seal to make sure that this is actually well protected, because mine was just rotten through. You can see how it's going to be against the inner fenders, the inner wings. Slightly different on this side to that side, but I can hammer that back, I think. Then maybe that could be where it was absolutely rotten and where I've repaired it, but it needs spot welding back in. Yeah, but look at that. That's how it's going to be. Then obviously with the rear floor, it's going to sit, that fold's obviously going to sit over the top. Happy days. Come back to you later on with something else.